For my analysis, this passage from Heart of Darkness shows how in the lawless Congo, values are turned upside down and people become overwhelmed by greed. So the main character being characterized in this passage is Kurtz, and we see that he reflects the insanity and hypocrisy or irony of imperialism. So for most of the book, Joseph Conrad keeps building up to Marlowe's meeting with Kurtz through the things that Marlowe hears about Kurtz from other people. So the manager of the central station says that Kurtz was sent to the Congo because they wanted someone with morals and lots of sympathy. And then in line 22 of the passage, Marlowe talks about having been told in all the tones of jealousy and admiration that Kurtz had collected, bartered, swindled, or stolen more ivory than all the Asians together. So everyone evidently thinks he's amazing, and Marlowe kind of gets caught up in that because he uses diction the inestimable privilege of listening to the gifted Kurtz in line 82. But the ironic thing about this is that the only reason a colonist in the Congo would look up to someone is if they're making the most profit, and not because they have good morals or great ideas. So the idea of what makes up a great person is basically turned upside down in the Congo, because those who are the most immoral, the most greedy, and the most crafty are the ones that they are basically respected the most, because they're the ones that are making the most money, even though it's by exploiting others and making them suffer. As Marlowe realizes later, Kurtz isn't really a good man in terms of morals. The only thing he's really great at is stealing and basically grave digging. And I say grave digging because in the last 3 lines of the passage, Marlowe talks about how Kurtz had so much ivory that it seemed like there wasn't a single tusk left either above or below the ground. And I mean, he could have just said there seemed to be no more ivory left in the country, but since he chose to emphasize that there seemed to not even be any ivory left below the ground, it kind of implies that Kurtz has been going around digging up dead elephants basically and taking their tusks for ivory. And then this idea of graves, death, and stuff like that is spread throughout this passage through diction, because for example in lines 1 to 6, Marlowe relates his disappointment to the kind you feel when you find out that you had been striving after something altogether without a substance, which kind of reminds me of a ghost. And then he talks about feeling desolated in line 49. The match going out in line 65 is kind of symbolizing death, since we talk about someone's flame going out when they die. And then there's the words dying in 93, ghost in line 99, and disinterred in line 107. So the Congo is really full of death and destruction, and it's mostly of the natives, but it's also of the colonists themselves. And this is true of Kurtz as well, in the way that Marlowe talks about him as if he's basically a dug-up corpse or a ghost, because he literally calls him a disinterred body in line 107, and says that he was very little more than a voice in line 87. So by calling Kurtz basically a corpse with a voice, Marlowe's basically saying that Kurtz was kind of dead as soon as he began being overcome by the need for more ivory, because he was bound to die in the Congo, because he would never be able to leave because of his insatiable greed. And there's even a point in the book where Marlowe talks about how Kurtz was about to leave the inner station, but he ended up turning back, and it might have been because he was attached to the natives, but it also could have been just because he wanted more ivory, so he couldn't leave because he just wanted to keep getting more and more. Indeed, the description of how the wilderness seems to have sealed Kurtz's soul to his own by the inconceivable ceremonies of some devilish initiation kind of calls to mind a Faustian deal with the devil, in which Kurtz has basically given up his soul to the wilderness just for the sake of getting more ivory. And on top of that, Kurtz's body is weak, and it's kind of it's really prone to illness and slowly kind of falling apart and wasting away. So he's being consumed by grief, both literally and figuratively. And Kurtz has no physical power because he's so weak now. But the only other form of strength he has is in his ability to speak. But then words are have the most power of all because they can move nations through speeches and they record history and etc. So to be able to speak well is a gift that can be bewildering, illuminating, the most exalted and most contemptible, the pulsating stream of light, or the deceitful flow from the heart of an impenetrable darkness. So this sentence in line 33, through parallel structure and juxtaposition of opposites, kind of shows how words are equally powerful whether you use them to spread lies or spread truth. So what one chooses to express with their voice is really important because what they choose to tell others can make all the difference. And so the question is what did Kurtz choose? And he claimed he had fantastic ideas, and Marlowe asserts that his ability to converse was really impressive, but the nature of Kurtz's ideas may have been dark because they could have been just focused on making profit for himself rather than helping the natives. And this is reflected in how, from another part in the book, for his essay for the Society of Suppressing Savage Customs, Kurtz talks about being benevolent and stuff to the natives, but later seems to have added a postscriptum exclaiming, "Exterminate the brutes," and this is on page 117. But this is basically imperialism in a nutshell, because they justify the invasion with a bunch of shiny words and stuff about how they're going to educate the natives and make them get progress and stuff. But then those words kind of made this dark wall of deceit behind which they basically just plundered and destroyed the Congo and wherever they went to. And also this line in the sentence in line 33 kind of draws a metaphor between truth as a stream of light and lies as a deceitful flow from the heart of an impenetrable darkness. And this dark river is most likely referring to the Congo River, because this was the river that was flowing from the heart of darkness of that was created by all the lies and deceit that was carried out by the imperialists. So through Kurtz we see in this passage how imperialism was really full of lies, greed, and inverted values. But maybe it's because where the imperialists went, there is no laws to inhibit them. So in this passage, maybe Conrad is trying to show how humans are kind of naturally greedy, and without rules kind of holding them back, it's they can end up doing some really horrible things. And it kind of seems that way when you look back on the mass destruction the West kind of brought upon the Congo and wherever else they invaded. And then this is my visual. It's not very good. So this side, it's kind of showing how they're saying all these pretty words, and it's oh, we'll educate them and we'll give them food and we'll be all happy and equal and stuff. And then this side is kind of the truth behind this nice all this bright nice stuff. It's what they actually did was basically enslave the natives, and all they cared about was ivory, and they kind of just punished them, treated them really inhumanely, and then basically they just made money off the exploitation of others.